Good afternoon, everybody. This is Penny Garton. I work with CDC Small Business Finance. I'm a senior loan officer there. And today we're going to be going through some alternative lending. So we'll get started here in a few minutes. If you have questions, you can drop them in the chat, but we will have a Q&A at the very end. I'll try to answer all the questions if possible. Also, the slides that you'll be seeing will also be available to you and be sent out in a PDF format for you to review. Or if you have any additional questions, you can always reach out with those. Okay? All right. So let me see here. We're going to pull up the PowerPoint and then we'll get started. Let me share my screen. Okay, thumbs up, Philip can see? Okay, awesome. So good morning again, or afternoon rather. As I said, we're going to explore traditional and alternative financing. And we're going to talk about various lending institutions, how to prepare for your loan request, some general information. In addition, I'm going to talk to you all about projection-based loans, what they are, if you need help, and who offers those. And then for existing that today as well. So let's the main part about the various lending institutions that are available today in the market for our business owners and for our entrepreneurs looking to start your business. So as we know, we have traditional commercial banks. We're talking about B of A, Chase, Wells Fargo, community banks. They'll offer traditional lending. They'll normally have a minimum loan amount. Now, it will vary based on the banking institution. Along with that, collateral is normally required. When we're talking about collateral, we're talking about equity in your home or any large-based asset that they could possibly secure to help strengthen the deal. In addition, cash flow requirements. That's a brand new topic that a lot of the business owners and entrepreneurs are starting to learn out there, but it's been in existence for as long as I've been doing this, which is about 37 years now. So basically what that means is where it says minimum cash flow requirement of 1.25, that basically means for every business dollar of debt, $1, the business has $1.25 to pay it. Okay, so that means you have some extra on the backside. So that's what that means. And then when we're talking about injection, we're basically talking about down payment. So if you are an entrepreneur looking to start a business, you're looking at either 20 to 30% injection requirement of your overall project cost. Okay, so whatever your overall project cost is, that percentage that the bank or lender is going to charge you is based on that project amount. And that is called injection because you are injecting it into your business. So it's not like buying a car and you can go put a down payment. You are actually injecting, whether it's working capital or maybe it's putting the lease deposit down, whatever it might be, or franchise deposit, all that is considered injection. And you want to make sure you save all your receipts and transaction history for that amount to show that you've done that. Okay. And again, those are mostly for all the new entrepreneurs, not for the existing business owners. All right. So that's traditional bank lending, what they're looking for, what their dollar amounts are. The maximum can range between 5 million up to 50 million, or depending on the divisions. So let's move on to CDCs and CDFIs. So I work for a CDC and a CDFI. CDC stands for Certified Development Company, and then CDFI stands for Community Development Financial Institution, okay? we are not a bank. We don't have deposits. We are what is called an alternative lender because we traditionally do either government lending, whether it's guaranteed by the state or guaranteed by the federal government, such as SBA, or we accumulate funds by grants, and then we're poised to lend that money out. So it could be not guaranteed, but it depends how that money is acquired. Normally, our minimum loan amounts are anywhere from 10 to 30,000. And then some of our maximum loan amounts are either 350,000 up to 500,000, depends on the lender. And collateral. And I put sometimes required because there are some institutions that require you to have collateral. Some do not. It is up to those individual lending institutions. So don't be discouraged. If you don't own your home, there's still lending available out there for you. And the same is if you think you have no equity in your home, don't worry. There are still programs out there available for you. Minimum injection requirements are going to vary according to the lender as well in this segment, the CDC and CDFIs. It's going to range between 10%, which is the minimum, up to 25%. And again, it depends on the lending institution. Okay. Now let's talk about credit unions. There are some business credit unions out there that offer commercial real estate lending. Their minimum loan amount is normally about $1 million. It will vary based on lenders, and they do have minimum injection or down payment requirements of 20 to 30%. So you want to seek out, if it says business able to help in the business lending realm. Not very many credit unions offer start-up business owners maybe looking to get a commercial building. That is kind of programs are always changing. Okay. And then we have our online lending institutions. Those are to be very mindful of that. The last thing you want to do is get a high rate loan on your and run into that high weekly or monthly payment that you just can't afford at that time. Okay. Okay, so these are the different lending institutions that there are. Now, let's move on to some additional info. So what is a CDC? As I said, it's a certified development company. All CDCs have to be a nonprofit. You have to be a nonprofit so you can be certified by the SBA to do their programs. So some banks offer SBA programs, and banks are not nonprofits. They are for-profit. Well, they offer a different SBA program than what a CDC or a CDFI will offer, okay? So that's the difference. We're not a bank, and we have to be a nonprofit to be certified either by the SBA, the federal government, or the Treasury if we're a CDFI, okay? And as I have at the bottom, there's over 260 plus CDCs across the United States. Okay. Here's the most important part. Let's prepare for your loan request. So I always recommend to clients, when you are doing a loan, it is building a relationship with that loan officer. So not only are they interviewing you, but you should be interviewing the loan officer that you're going to work with. Are they going to be able to answer your questions in a timely manner? How do they communicate with you? Is everything electronic? Are you okay with that? Or do you want somebody to sit there and do those with you? Okay, so have a conversation. The next thing is the lender will always give you or email you a needs list. That is where you will start accumulating these items. You want to make sure and convert those files into a PDF file on your computer, because we need to make sure that, one, we can read it. If you take a picture of it and then send it, sometimes that's a little hard to read for us. But the PDF allows us to read it a whole lot better. And then if you need help, obviously reach out to the chamber so this way they can help you if you need additional help working through those items. Again, we'll send the needs list out so you can follow that list and know what you're going to need. Okay, what do we evaluate? This is always the topics. What do you need? What are you looking at? Existing business owners, make sure you have 2 years business tax returns filed. So that would be 23 and 24. If 2024 is on extension, you're going to send the 2022, the 2023, and you're going to send the fiscal year end for 2024. And then you're also going to send, this would be for all business owners, you're also going to send the current profit and loss and balance statement. Now, if you don't use QuickBooks, you want to pull a template that you could put this into a format that is legible. And if you need a format for that, I'm happy to send over my format. It's an Excel spreadsheet. I can send that over so it can be sent out. In addition, we're going to look at your business schedule of debt, meaning what does the business currently have on their balance statement as far as debt. If you're doing a debt refinance, you're going to need the current statements, and then you're going to need 6 months bank statements, full statements, all pages, and then the current lease agreement for the business location only. Now, if you are a home-based business, that's okay. We don't need the lease. It's only for if you are in a brick and mortar for your business. People ask, why do you need that? Well, we want to know that you're going to be in your location, especially if you're location dependent for your business, that you're there long enough for the term of your loan. So most non-commercial real estate business loans are a maximum 10 years. So if your lease is only for 5 years, you can do an option to renew for an additional 5 to make it out to the 10 years, and that's acceptable. Okay, if you're an existing business and you wish to do an expansion, maybe you're going to do a second location or you're going to add on, we're going to need projections if the business cannot sustain the debt. And then you just give us a quick synopsis of what's the plan for expansion. Okay, now let's go back to the debt refinance. This is business debt refinance. A lot of businesses will use their personal credit cards for the business. I will tell you, it is very hard to refinance those personal cards. At all costs, please try not to use your personal credit cards for your business. Really go out there and try to get a business credit card. A lot of your banks offer those. They have different terms, but trying to refinance personal debt is very hard to do in a business loan, especially through SBA. They've made it a little more difficult recently. All right, let's go on to startup businesses. Now, you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to get your doors open, you got your business plan, you got your projections ready, you're looking at a location, and you're ready to apply for the loan. Here's what you need. These are just a few pieces. It's not all the pieces, but these are the main pieces. So 24 months projections, which is basically your forecasting your income and expenses for the first 2 years, month over month, in your projections. Your business plan. You need to have a business plan, and you want to update that business plan as time goes past also. So if you did a business plan last year at this time, the economy was very different compared to today. So keep all that in mind. If you're going to lease a location, you're going to get a letter of interest, an LOI, which is basically telling your lender, this is what the lease structure is going to look like. And then if you're needing to do any tenant improvements on that lease location, you need to have a general contractor's bid. And the reason for that is if you guess how much it's going to cost, and then it comes in 2 times the amount, and you've submitted a loan request for a certain amount, and now you're short and you can't get your doors open because you can't get your certificate of occupancy. So we need that general contractor's bid. And then equipment. If you're going to purchase equipment or furniture, fixtures, any of that, you always want to have your invoices or purchase orders. Again, you don't have to execute any of these items. We just need the bids on all of these items so we have a good idea of what the cost is to get your doors open. Franchise. SBA recently implemented on June 1st, just the other week, the approved franchise list again. So if you plan on starting up a business, 9 times out of 10, you're going to do an SBA loan. That's the majority of the startups. They go through SBA because the program is a little bit more simpler to do. So if you're buying a franchise, you want to make sure that that franchise is on that SBA approved franchise list. We've been reviewing those, just making sure if they're on there, they need to get recertified, and that process has already began. If they are not on there, we can send the email address where that franchisor needs to send that information to get certified on the list, okay? In addition to the projections and business plans. Now, I know there's a lot of companies out there that will do these for you, and that's great, but lenders don't want that. Lenders want to see the work that you have put in to do the projections. To know your numbers is what I tell my clients. You need to know your numbers. You need to be able to speak to those numbers when I ask, how did you arrive at this number? Your business plan should also give those assumptions within it, your market research. It's great to have the assistance, but make sure you're doing the majority of the work because you're the one who's going to have to be part of that interview with your lender about how did you get to these numbers, okay? All right. Now, who needs to guarantee the loans? 20% or more ownership in a business will need to guarantee the loan. You'll need to supply this information, personal information, in order to be part of that loan request. Now, recently, if you happen to do an SBA loan and some of the state guarantee loans are following suit, the same as the federal government is doing, is if you do a government loan, your ownership structure needs to be 100% US citizen owned. That just changed about 30, maybe 40 days ago. That was implemented. It's new. They can't even have 0.5% ownership, a foreign person. So you need to either be a US citizen or have a permanent resident alien card, okay, permanent citizenship. So that's new. Keep that in mind when you're looking at it. If you're trying to apply for a loan and you have any foreign ownership percentage in there, you won't qualify for government lending. All right. So here's what we evaluate. And a lot of folks say, oh, the 5 C's of credit. Yes, this is the 5 C's of credit. So credit, cash flow, collateral, capital, and conditions. So what does that all mean? So credit, again, anyone with 20% or more ownership, we're going to run their credit and guarantee their loan. There are some lenders that require a minimum FICO score. Some of it is 620 or higher. Some don't require a credit score, but if you have credit blemishes, you're going to need to bring everything current, get on a payment plan for the collections or charge-offs, and speak to what happened. I always recommend that you pull your credit report once a year so you know what's on there, so you're not surprised when it gets pulled. And then really watch your revolving debt. Revolving debt will cause your score to be low. Now, if you pay off your revolving debt, don't close it because you're going to lower your score again. That's kind of a catch-22 on those. I paid it off, I'm going to close it. Well, it will increase your score the moment you pay it off, but as soon as you close it, it's going to drop your score back down. So give it some time. And then eventually, it could possibly either be closed out or you can go in and close it out yourself. Okay. All right, cash flow for existing business owners. When we collect the business tax returns, we're going to run some calculations to see, can the business sustain the loan request payment? Again, and then for startups, we're going to look to see on your personal income, secondary income, household income, can it support the household while the business is ramping up? Okay, so you need to have outside income, secondary income. If you have a spouse, and that income can support the household. And when I say household, that's everything on the credit report payment, and then the cost of living. So rent, groceries, gas, electricity, all of that needs to be supported by the secondary income. Now, I get asked a lot of times, well, what if I don't have that and I'm going to quit my job because I need to dedicate 100% of my time to starting this business? That's okay, except you need to show that you have 12 months saved up of liquidity in your checking or savings account to support yourself. That means if your household debt is $2,000 a month, just giving you random numbers, is $2,000 a month, you need to have 12 months saved up, $24,000 saved up on top of your required injection money. Okay, so it's doable, but you need to have the liquidity to do that. All right, we talked about collateral. Collateral is tangible assets that can be sold by a lender. So a home, or liquidated. It could be an investment asset, any part of that. If it's a business, it could be large size equipment. A lot of times the lenders will file what's called a UCC, which stands for Uniform Commercial Code. We'll file that on the business. Basically, what that means is a lender is in line to be paid if the business fails and then gets liquidated. Okay. All right, capital. This is liquidity. What kind of liquidity do you have? We're looking at savings account, checking account. If you have gift funds, anything of that sort. What liquidity do you have to get ready, or does the business already have in case of anything? So we're looking at capital. And then conditions. Conditions are, what experience do you have if you're a startup to start that business? Okay, that's what we're looking at. What is your background to start this industry? For example, I've only done commercial lending for the last 37 years. That's all I know. If I came to you and wanted to start a food truck, I have no experience in that whatsoever. So my conditions are not favorable in my loan request. Okay, so sometimes you need to bring in a partner to meet those conditions. All right. Let's talk about projection-based loans. So we went through 5 C's of credit. Let's talk about projection-based loans. What are they? It's an estimate of what the revenue and expenses are going to be for that startup or existing business expansion. You're going to sit, you're going to figure it all out. There's templates that are available, and you just start plugging everything in, okay? When you're working through it, take your time. I get a lot of folks that say, oh, I'll have it back to you in 24 hours. Not likely. It's probably going to take you at least 2 to 3 weeks to do so. Take your time doing this, okay? If you need assistance, reach out. There are a lot of resources in order to help you doing the projections, okay? All right, this is what a template looks like. This is blank. It's an Excel spreadsheet. This is one that I use for our company. It goes out, everybody plugs it in, and it automatically populates all the numbers for you, okay? Utilize it. Change the numbers. Maybe you look at it and go, wow, that's a lot of expenses. Where can I cut corners? Or maybe I need to look at a different vendor because they're a lot more pricier than I'm willing to do. Or I've had a lot of clients where they look at it and go, I think I'm going to do this in phases. So I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to come back, 8, 9 months, 12 months later and start into this phase because that's more palatable for me to bite off and start. Okay, we want you to be comfortable with what you're doing. Okay, you need help with your projections. As I said, don't rush them, take your time. You're buying a franchise. Your franchisor should give you what is called a federal disclosure document. It should have the estimated cost and expenses to help you do the projections. All right. And then you can always reach out to your current business counselor services as well. I highly recommend that you do that. And like I said, take your time to do these. Okay. Now let's talk to the existing business owners and the entrepreneurs. This is also important too. Lenders look at the profit, loss, and balance statements for a few reasons. What is the company leverage? What does that mean? How much have you borrowed? Like how much do you owe in debt versus how much equity is in the business? So if you continue to take out the equity and you're negative, you have no equity in that business. Therefore, you're what we call highly leveraged. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be declined because you're highly leveraged or over leveraged. So you want to keep all that in mind. You need to keep some equity in that business to either be even or, maybe you invest the money and you're pulling it out and investing it for yourself. Well, there are accounts that you can set up for your business as a business investment account. Talk with your bankers about that. I see a lot of those, and that's good. We look for one-time capital expenditures. Maybe you're upgrading your software, upgrading your computer servers, and it was a large expense, and it's what we call one-time capital expenditures. Make sure you tell your loan officer. We need to know that. Those are one times. That means we can add it back because there are only certain portions that we can add back to get the business to debt service. Okay. Also, on your profit and loss, are your expenses exceeding your gross revenue? It happens. I see it frequently. And this is where you really need to sit and look at these on a monthly basis. Outside of the one-time capital expenditures, are your expenses exceeding the gross revenue? Take a look, sit down, have a conversation. And then make sure you don't have any personal debt going through the business. And here's why. If you decide to sell your business, that is a negative against your value of your business. I'll give you an example. I had a client a few years ago. He wanted to sell his building, his commercial building. One of my other clients was going to buy it from him. We went to go do the value because it was already occupied with many tenants. And the value came back almost $1 million less than what the owner was wanting to sell it for. Why? When I started looking at it, everything, including his mortgage payment on his personal residency, was being paid through the business, the building. And so we can only take what it is. Whatever the financial state, that is what we're going to take. So keep it separate. Keep it separate. You can always just pay yourself a draw to pay your personal bills, but keep it off of your business balance statements and expenses. It'll help you. Trust me, in the long run, it makes a huge difference. And then one of the other things that we look at is, are the retained earnings negative or positive? And this comes into place with the leverage. How is that looking? If you're draining everything, you're either going to be zero or negative. If you're positive, that's great. You're keeping equity into the business and reinvesting into the business. Okay. All right. So now we get to the end here, and here's some common questions that are asked, and then we'll open it up for questions right after. So here's the four most common questions. First one, how long does it take to get approved for a small business loan? Depends on the lender, can take 2 to 3 weeks and then to get an approval, and then funded within about 2 weeks after your loan approval. So shouldn't be any more than 30 to 45 days. Next question. What are the fees associated? It's going to vary by the lender, but it should be no more than between $6,000 and $10,000. And keep in mind, some of these fees can be financed into the loan amount, okay? Or we can extract it from the loan proceeds. All right, next question. What happens if I get an SBA loan and I can't make the payments anymore? The government is going to get their money. They will work with you on making the payments because they are not in the business to own personal real estate or commercial real estate and sell it. They are not in the real estate business. But if you don't even make those payments, they're going to come after your tangible assets. Okay. So the loans are not forgivable. Yes, there is what we call a guarantee fee. That's to pay the lender who's put the money up front for you. That's to pay that lender a portion, either 75 to 85% of the loan amount to pay it off, but you could still have a deficiency balance. Okay. So really try to work with them if you fall into that situation. All right, and one of the last questions I asked is, what are the common restrictions that cannot be paid through your loan proceeds? And basically, it's these four main ones. If you have unpaid taxes, you cannot use it for that. Collections, charge-offs, or settlements on the business or on the personal side. That's the most common restriction that is out there. So keep that in mind, okay? All right, those are the most common questions. We're going to open it up here, but the last slide I'm going to give you is my contact information. Any questions you might have, you can always go through your counselors or the center. They know how to also get a hold of me, but here is my contact information. Always happy to answer questions as best I can. Or if you are looking for a particular type of lending, I can potentially help you locate that as well. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. There we go. All right. And we're ready for questions. So Faison, anything we've got in the chat box? Oh my goodness, there's a big long question here. Okay, let's start at the top here. Let's see. Okay, we'll start at the top here, and I'm just going to read them. I recently applied for and got a line of credit from my bank. It seems like the needs list keeps on changing. They gave me a list, then the underwriter keeps coming back for more and different documents. Is this common? Okay, so two things. One, if you take more than 30 days to get your items that are needed into the underwriter or the loan officer, the items you have submitted become stale dated. If they become stale dated, we need to update that info. That is a federal regulation requirement. If they're asking for items, let's say you submit 2 weeks ago and they come back with, hey, we need this now, it's because something was found during the review of the documents. You can always ask. For example, what I do is when I need something additional, I let them know verbally and via email so they can follow up on the email and attach it for me. I'll tell them, as I was reviewing your tax returns, I noticed you own another company on your Schedule E. Please send me the following information on that business. And so that is when additional items should be needed, only at that time. If it is you sent everything on the needs list they sent you, and now all of a sudden they need your tax returns, that should have been on the initial email. So that's kind of the one off. Maybe they forgot to put it on their needs list. But you're always welcome to ask, why do you need this? Always reach back out, ask the questions. I hope that answered your question. Okay. Next question. I am not American, non-resident, non-citizen, USA. I am from Bangladesh. How do I apply for this loan? So, as I stated before, all the government lending loans now require that you have 100% US citizenship or permanent resident alien um, card, a green card, basically is what we call it. Besides that, I would have to say you would have to probably look for private money if you were looking to start a business. I don't know even if the traditional banks are doing partial US citizenship. They normally require 51% US citizenship ownership of the business. Okay. Next question. If your spouse is also on a personal residence and not involved with your business, would the bank still need to use the residence as the collateral? Yes. Simple question. Our answer is yes on that one, especially in community property states. The spouse would sign the document, but not necessarily guarantee the loan. So if the spouse's income is not needed to cover household debt, remember that's personal credit report debt and cost of living, monthly living expenses. If the spouse's income is not needed, they do not necessarily need the spouse to guarantee the loan. Okay. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Just depends. But as far as the residency, yes. And the spouse would have to sign for those, but again, not guaranteeing the loan. Okay. Next question. What's an interesting or important lesson you've learned from a small business financing journey? What should I absolutely mistakenly not do? Any interesting or unconventional success stories? Okay. Through my slides, I told you address the do not run your personal debt through your business, because if your business booms and you're wanting to sell it because you get this crazy offer for it, that's going to be a negative on the value of your business. In addition, here's my other one. That was not in my slides, but I will tell you, as business owners, when it is tax time or quarterly meetings, and you take your documents to your CPA, you should be sitting down and having a conversation with your CPA. You are paying them to advise you as well. You need to sit and have that conversation, because if your plan is to buy your building next year or the following year, and we all know we love our CPAs, I love them too, but their job is to do as much write-offs as they can so you pay minimal tax, right? Well, if they do that and then you come to the lender to apply and your business has written everything off that we can't add back, your business cannot show that you can sustain that commercial mortgage loan for the building you want to buy. Okay. So sit down, have a conversation with your CPA. That is like one of the top notch things. And even when I say that in person in workshops and there's CPAs out in the audience, they stand up and clap, because it's like, we keep telling our clients, make an appointment with us. Let's talk. Okay. So have a conversation. Okay. Next question. Do CDCs or CDFIs typically assist with business acquisition loans? Yes, we do. We do several business acquisition loans. Again, if it's within our lending limits, we can do so. For example, my lending limit for my division only is $350,000, and that's because that is the federal and state government's program maximum. Okay, so yes, we can assist with those. Okay. And then this last long question, let's see. Um,
Yes, Penny, I think you can go to the next one is it possible to get a loan if business is under loss? Reason for loan is to fix the issues leading to loss. Can you see the questions? It's
I
after
see
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And there
see it
are
right
some
there.
questions. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Couple of things. It's going to depend how long the business has been open. So I'm just going to give examples. If the business has been operating for 5 private money lenders, they're going to want to know your plan to make it positive. Because normally, if you are running at a loss, one of two things. Either your expenses are too high or you're not charging enough. So re-look at your market plan more than anything. Look at your expenses, look at your balance statement, look at your income and expense statement. So that's an existing business 5 years. If you are a new business, what we call a protracted startup, let's just say you opened your doors 24 months ago, and the last 2 years you ran a loss, but you've been marketing, pushing product out there in the market, and now you've got contracts. You got contracts to fulfill, you're going to turn the corner, but you need working capital to buy inventory or hire staff. We can look at doing a projection-based loan, but you have to have a good plan to show. So if you have executed contracts to show you're about to turn that corner, supply those executed contracts to mitigate the projections that are going to be required. So I hope that answers that question. Okay. All right, let's see. What type of loan is good for business acquisitions? I will say normally SBA is like the number one for that because you don't need, for the most part, you don't need collateral unless your loan amount is going above 350,000. And then that SBA lender more than likely is going to look for collateral. The reason why I say that is SBA will allow you to do not just the business acquisition, but let's say it's a business you're buying and you're going to need additional working capital or you need upgraded equipment. You can encompass that all in that same loan. Whereas if you did a separate loan just for the business, then you got to turn around and get another loan for working capital and equipment or whatever else might be needed. Okay. All right. Next question. Do CDCs assist with SBA 7A loans? I don't see them listed on the website. So a 7A, so there's two parts of a 7A loan, or two types of 7A loans. There are traditional SBA 7A loans that are done at your traditional banks. Okay, that program can go up to $5 million. You can buy property with it, you can do business acquisition, you can do working capital. It's the all-encompass program. Then the CDC, which is a certified development company like my company, we do what is called a community advantage loan, which we still call it that, but now it's just called a small business loan. The name sunsetted last year. It falls under the SBA 7A program, okay? But it's a different kind of 7A that can only be done by a CDC, which remember, a CDC has to be a nonprofit and certified in order to do that program. So the SBA loan that I do at my company cannot be done by the banks because you have to be a nonprofit certified company. Okay. Looks like last question. Do CDCs or does Penny specifically engage with the business owners in the process of selling their business as opposed to purely helping on the buyer side assist with the loans for a purchase? So we do not, let me rephrase that. Most CDCs and CDFIs do not engage with the sellers in helping them sell the business. We normally are only engaging with the buyer because it is the buyer that we're having to pre-qualify and approve to buy the business. If you're needing assistance with it, there are loan brokers out there that can help you with it. You could also check with your CPA. Sometimes they are connected with a business valuation company, so you kind of know. And then I will tell you, majority of the business acquisitions need to go through escrow. Depending on the state, you'll either go through escrow or you go through legal, an attorney. The reason for that is if I'm buying a business in California, I have to engage an escrow company or a title company to open escrow, just like you're buying a home, because they have to do some notifications. That's called a bulk sale notification. In the state of California, that's what it's called. And basically, they put this notification out in the newspapers. And once the days have passed, according to the county, then the closing of the business can occur. Now, what happens is, let's say I'm buying the business from Philip, and the day I close and we execute everything and everything gets done and recorded, from that day forward, Philip is now relieved of the liability of that company, and I am now responsible. The title company basically does clean slate of new owners through the closing. So it's just like buying a home. It's a clean slate, you're responsible. Okay. Okay. Am I based in DC? I do not recall seeing where I'm based. Okay, so I am based in Central Valley in California. Our company is nationwide. So I'm one of the few loan officers that does deals nationwide. So I do work coast to coast. Physically, I cover Central Valley, and physically, I also cover the Las Vegas market. So that means in-person presentations, expos, all of that. Other than that, I work with clients coast to coast. For example, right now I'm working with two clients down in Florida. I have one up in Northern and Ohio, and then of course California and all throughout. So, any other questions? Let's see. Next question. Is a 350 cap on the loans for our CDC include any lines of credits? So our company, the program that we do is a term loan. So that means it has a 10-year term on it. It is not a line of credit where it rolls in like a regular line of credit. So business line of credit. There are a few CDCs out there that will do a business line of credit, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to need to get that business line of credit from your business bank. Because that is something that is can be drawn on daily. And so normally the staffing is needed for those lines of credits to turn, which is why we've not implemented a business line of credit here at our company. We don't have the staffing to manage that daily transactions. So, all right. Next question. Let's see. Do I have any interesting or unconventional success stories? Let's see. I'm trying to think. Recently, so unconventionally, we don't, for the most part, do unconventional lending. I will tell you that we have some lending that occurs where we do what's called joint lending with other lenders. So let's say your project amount is 500,000. Well, we cap out at 350,000. You have to inject 10% of overall project costs. So we're still short, right? So we can engage another lender to do this joint lending venture. That means we're taking part of the risk and the other lender's taking part of the risk. So that would be your unconventional success. We've done several of those. That sometimes can go hand in hand with a local CDFI that maybe has grant money. So you can do a grant money plus, the alternative lending. Sometimes the banks will engage part of the state bridge loan programs if you're doing commercial real estate. So those are some kind of unconventional successes that we do. Okay. Okay, the question has come back. I may not have been clear. I meant to ask if the 350 cap includes any working capital needs in the project. For instance, if the purchase price for a business is 300 and the buyer wants 100,000 in working capital, would the project for the term loan exceed the 350 cap? Oh, okay, so I understand your question. So no, the program cap is 350,000. That means the lender cannot exceed that 350,000. What you would be able to obtain is the 50,000 because if the purchase price is 300,000, now keep in mind, depending on the lender, you need to inject 10 to 20% of that purchase price only, okay? So whatever is left, we'll just say, for example, my company is 10% injection requirement for the business acquisition. So that would leave you 270,000, correct, needing to borrow for the business acquisition. So that would leave you 80,000 in working capital to apply for the program cap of 350,000. Does that make sense? Looks like Kenley asked that question. Let me know if that makes sense. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Any other questions? Looks like we're coming to the close here.
Thank you so much, Penny. Yes, I think it will be our last questions, and thank you so much for hosting this session. Um, we all learned a lot from you, and thank you.
My pleasure. And again, reach out with any questions. I'm always happy to answer them.